on the first slide. Right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard all about sensors. But let me, before I start, give you a little perspective about where I come from and how I view technology. Because everyone has his own technological view and whatever has been his experiences in the military. Now, where I'm concerned, I'm a tank man. I have commanded an independent armored brigade, which was into strike corps operations into enemy territory. So therefore, your requirements of technology there are slightly different because of infrastructure non-availability. And the second is, when you're commanding a division, let's say on the line of control or on the working boundary with a certain amount of an operational role, you have a different, I think, should and be the way technology has to be used both in platforms and in the Metcalfe law of squaring it by able to putting it into place by networking it. So let's take it. Yeah, most of us are learned enough to know what I'm talking about. So I'll take it on the first slide. If you have a look at it, what it says is that you're into 24/7, 365 action. All this stuff that we all know about is all there. But let me give you one little bit out here of communications transparency. What I mean by the last bullet on that slide. Today, you have people operating equipment from thousands of kilometers away and hitting targets which are talking to each other in Afghanistan and Somalia. It comes out in the papers every second day. Now, how does that happen? Communications transparency. And in this is something which we add on to the technology of platforms that we're talking about. Now, this is, to my mind, in our or my worldview, the new changes which are taking place. If you look at it, we talked about network centricity. Now, what do we understand about network centricity? The way I see it, in the Indian military, what I want is, one, increased technological use in platforms, increase its capability and range of the platforms by technology. But what is even more important to me, when I was commanding a corps or a division, is not just the lethality of the weapon. It is how I can network it in order to create the effect at the point of decision. Now, if I can make that happen, I think that is what network centricity is all about. I add to PK has to say, part of his presentation, that when this convergence takes place of computers and surveillance sensors technology and comes to me as a commander, and I'm able to get battlefield transparency to the effect that I know where the enemy is, where my own forces are, what effects I can create by the lethality of the weapons which are at my disposal, not only which are in the immediate vicinity, but in the area around it, and bring this to bear on the enemy at the point where I wanted to bring it to bear, which creates the operational or the strategic effect that I want. That would be network centricity. Now, how do I come to it? I'll come a little later. Space-based surveillance, we know about, gives you transparency. Cruise missile technology. Today, people are looking at, let's look at it from a point of view of what the Chinese are doing. The Chinese in Tibet today have a mix. Air Force for deliverance of high-value ordnance at long ranges, and the 2nd Artillery Corps. Now, the 2nd Artillery Corps is mostly missile-based. If you want to ask yourself that, it's very simple. The reason that in high altitude, at those altitudes of Tibet, over 14,000 feet, your payloads which your aircraft carry are low. Therefore, missiles. It makes sense. They have a mix of missiles and Air Force technology. Third, when you come to the issue of advanced missile technology, you even look at the payload that is delivered by these advanced aerial weapons, which is what the United States is using both in Somalia and in Afghanistan, and of course Pakistan. That is the next we covered. The new technology weapons, both in terms of space-based lasers and anti-matter or anti-laser or ASAT weapons, are all coming into the picture at the moment. So therefore, I would feel that in my worldview, the key drivers for change today, especially where the Indian Army is concerned, should be your network centricity and information warfare, including the cyber domain. Now, what do I mean by this? And how do you put it down to brass tacks where all of us are on the same grid as to what we want? Today, let me tell you, we are platform-centric. I want more guns. I want more tanks. I want more infantry on ground. Personally, and this is my personal opinion, not really the right way to go. The whole world's going the other way, actually. Now, how do we make sure that we don't keep adding on to these platforms, both in terms of the infantry soldier right up to whatever individual weapon systems that we have? I feel that the way that we have to go is network centricity. We have a number of projects going. We all know about it. In fact, the civil enterprises and industries are all working in hand with it. We have a pool of software talent, which is, I would say, second to none in the world. Now, what we need to do here for network centricity, for platform changes, is this, that in addition to the technology that the platforms already have, we need to network it. Now, networking, one of the part of the networks that we just talked about is the sensor network, which PK just talked about. Apart from that, you need to process this data. Whatever the stuff that comes in terms of information, whether it comes from a surveillance sensor, whether it comes from an infantry soldier on ground through communications, has to be processed and digitized and come to the commander in an understandable form. So the hub of this system is something that we call the CIDSS. A lot of things have been written about it. The Command Information and Decision Support System, which is the key or the heart to a network-centric model, which we are working at. There are advances which have been made. Of all the systems which are going into place, the problem that we are up is the software and the hardware don't match. That's where I'm a fan of Steve Jobs. He's done it in the Apple. He's able to integrate the software and the hardware in a manner that the hardware is the one that becomes the enabler to the software. In the Indian military, we've gone about it the other way around, but we are learning from our mistakes. We went in for the hardware first, and then developed the software. The point is this, as what General Devendra brought about, hardware is changing rapidly. The changes in hardware are happening every 6 months to 2 years. The software is something that you can change in a shorter time frame. So I would look at it this way, that if you want network centricity, you're looking at a software development system where we have to put our heads together, work out what exactly we want as an output at each level of command. Understand, so this is the output that you require. Put the software into place and plug in the hardware, because by the time your software is developed, your hardware has changed. Example, networking systems that PK just talked about. If you want to move in 150 sensors across a front and you bring it down to the commander, it's impossible today. You don't have the bandwidth. You may have the bandwidth, you may say that yes, the fiber optics is infinite. It doesn't work that way. In the fiber optics, you have hardware switches. Your hardware switches do not have the capacity to take on both video, audio, and whatever data communications that you want. So therefore, your hardware switches are the ones that are the little defiles or the little funnels that are created in your infinite tube that restrict your network-centric warfare. And this is one of the main problems that we had wherever I have been. So let's go on to the network-centric warfare, where you are trying to network the whole systems and therefore using the Metcalfe's law and increasing the power of your output. what we've done using network-centric warfare is just two things, what you see there. You have freed the platforms from the combat power, and you are basing your whole strategy on the massing of effects rather than the concentration of physical forces at a point of place. These are the two things that combat or network-centric warfare can actually achieve for you. As far as technology is concerned, we've always talked about the OODA loop. Now, I just want to put into perspective the OODA loop. If you see the first part, observe, orient, and decide. These three things are network-oriented. It's information-based. The faster you get the information, the more transparent it is, and the faster you can decide using your CIDSS systems, you can then put into motion your action. Action is kinetic. That's why your platforms come in. So three parts of the OODA loop is information and network-based. Just one part of it is action-based. And that is why if you see technology as to how it's developed, from the 1960s and 70s, your platform technology has actually slowed down in the development. And what has really increased exponentially is the observe, orient, and the decide part, the information explosion. And that is what you're talking about, the RMA and the RSA part of it. So, this is what the network looks like. You have everything put together with the overarching cyber technology, wherein you have got yet another domain in this, which is also part of it, which is the cyber technology domain, which actually has no boundaries. There are no political boundaries on the cyber domain. So that is why in peacetime, you have a cyber war going on, and nobody really recognizes it. So the cyber domain is an essential part of your system. Now, when you come to the cyber domain, I'll come to the ERP a little later. So therefore, today's platforms, and we're talking about platforms and technology, rely on network centricity very heavily for their targeting priorities and information. And if you don't have your networks in place, you cannot actually employ your platforms effectively. And that is the point that I have to most of the audience here, that today our attention must go far more than what, not only attention, I'd say attention and resources must be plugged in towards getting information and getting your networks in place, getting all these projects, including the CIDSS, a swift kick to take it to the next level. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in a war that has happened before and it won't be fought again. And this is what you need to do in terms of going on to the next level of your platform technology, making your dumb weapons smart, getting on to places where you not only have your normal platforms which are designed in the 1950s, your artillery pieces today are designed in the 1960s. Your tanks today, which you're using today, have been designed 30 years back. And you're still using them. You've got to make them smarter, and you make the dumb thing smarter by using not only technology, but making sure that you network this technology. And that's how we make these exponential gains. Just a point before I close. Today, General Devendra made a very telling point about the transfer of technology. Let me tell you, I went down to see a particular factory. The T90 factory, we are supposed to have a TOT. However, the TOT doesn't exist. In the contract, you have something saying that trade items will not be transferred as technology. And trade items include your gun barrel. It includes even down to the ERA panel and the explosive inside it. So the point is this, that most of the stuff that is being done today in your production factories are not technologically transferred. You're just doing a sort of a put it together sort of a thing. Either you call it a CKD or whatever system that you can call it. And I went and I had a look at this in detail. So therefore, the point that I want to make to this House at large, and especially those people dealing with it, is that technology doesn't come easy. It comes at a price, it comes with collaboration, with friendly foreign countries, and it comes with a scratch my back, scratch your back system. So whatever you have to offer your friendly foreign country and what they have to offer it, if it matches, transfer of technology takes place. But the point is that whenever we do get it, we must make absolutely sure that the contracts are properly worked out. So, in conclusion, I would like to just make one point. Today, the Indian military works on a system that we move seamlessly from peacetime to war. In the peacetime, we are yet to put into place an ERP system. Now, where I come from in Southern Command, we are in the process of putting something into place. And this ERP system is going to be plugged in through AIPs straight into the mobilization mode and therefore into combat. Now that system to be integrated with your network is what we are eventually, hopefully, planning to do. It won't come up in a hurry, and it won't come up at all if many of the august people sitting here don't understand the way I think, which is this, that unless we push hard and put in the maximum amount of bucks into our networks and into our projects like the BSS, the BMS, the CIDSS, and all the other alphabets that we use, your technology and your platforms, making this a driver, will not work. Thank you.
Thank you. That was an excellent capture of what the situation on the ground is, what needs to be done. As I said, we will have the comments and question answer in the end. I will now request General Bhalla, who will be talking to us on core technologies impacting modern warfare.
Ladies and gentlemen, back here again, but this time I've been told not to put down my computer because the slides will shut down. That's my direction. So, my job's been made pretty easy, firstly, because the way the panel has drawn up the topics, I think flowing out very well, and having covered the requirement of sensors, followed by the way the platform should evolve, and given the current obtaining reality in terms of technology, network centricity, what General Surendranath spoke about, it made my job far easier because now core technologies becomes essentially an academic issue. And followed by KPM Das, who's going to, General Lavender, who's going to do the anti-technology bit, where he's going to rip us all apart, I assume, that nothing will work in battle. But on the other hand, it's made very difficult. We old ustads for those who don't understand is Urdu for bosses and gurus, if you will. And we have General J.P. Singh here, General Sabharwal, and one is here because of that, and I'm glad that they'll critically rip me apart after I'm done. So I'm hoping for that. With that, ladies and gentlemen, on core technologies, all I'm going to touch upon the tools and tactics of how we fight have always evolved along with technology. Warfare in the information age, take those specs of mine. Warfare in the information age will inevitably embody the characteristics that distinguish this age from previous ones. Often in the past, military organizations pioneered both the development of technology and its application. Today, however, technology is being driven primarily by the demands of the commercial sector and is being applied commercially in ways that are transforming warfare all around the globe. Having said that, the technology is changing the battle space in three fundamental ways. And what are those? The expansion of the battlefield, firstly, to all the domains that have been covered earlier by General Surendranath. The space factor I touched upon in my keynote. The nature of the combatants. I mentioned the nature of warfare, hybrid warfare. And finally, the loss of privacy and remoteness, that is accessibility or lack of security, or uh, the enablers to dig into any network which are obtaining today. So no sooner does technology open any environment to human activity, that environment becomes the theater of warlike operations. With that, a violent two-sided activity governed by action and reaction, challenge and response, that is the battlefield tomorrow. An additional factor is the nuclear weapons. We've just had the book launch on tactical nuclear weapons, and while I was discussing with the DGIT on how does it evolve, while not going into the specifics of whatever classified information we have access to, it is a reality. It's not an emerging reality. It's an obtaining reality. So, for the first time, a weapon has been built. I speak of the TNWs, the book which has been launched now, where no effective defense, there is no effective defense, the link between victory and survival has therefore been cut. Finally, the future battlefield milieu. Enough has been spoken about it, everyone's aware of it. I just wish to highlight that there will be real-time flow of information due to advanced integrated sensors, precision fires, of which General Surinder alluded to, lethality, cause heavy degradation, deep strikes over the horizon, and non-linearity. While in mountains, which was alluded to as well, it will remain essentially a war of attrition. The battle would therefore extend into multispectral domains, conventional, sub-conventional, non-conventional, cyber, space, and information warfare. All these have been alluded to, that's why I'm not dwelling on it. In summation, while science will drive technology, technology will indeed drive warfare, notwithstanding the human angle. Now, which are these core technologies? Well, I'll try and relate it to actuals and not stick to the academic content. Material science, nanotechnology. Nanotechnology is the foremost amongst the current technologies being researched which has the potential to revolutionize warfare. And we have stealth technology, stronger, lighter vehicles, aircraft, tougher armor, hybrid armor, better protective clothing, faster computers, and in the signal realm, things like better batteries, longer storage capacities, and the like. So this nanotechnology will help create a fourth generation nuclear weapon with a low yield, clean fusion weapon, which could be used in earth penetrating missiles. So far, which was in the academic realm, but definitely emerging as a live threat. Missile technologies. Enough has been spoken about cruise missiles. So now give out a complete detail of how they work. They've added another dimension to missile warfare. Anti-radiation missiles have displayed pinpoint accuracy against active radars as well. Combat vehicles and engineering. The future combat system, main battle tanks, infantry combat vehicles, power packs, stealth technologies, helicopters, armored fighting vehicles. The issues of active signature nullification, visual signature control, photochromic materials, and next generation coatings are very much relevant today. Let's talk about information communication technology. This goes into every dimension of warfare. It was alluded to, information warfare. Now, how does it relate to us? I was talking a while back to General Ravinder. You need a central hub, which was spoken about, where all info flows in terms of intelligence, surveillance, radars, electronic, human are fed. And nothing exemplifies it better than the SOCOM, the Special Operations Command of the U.S. military, which is a joint command in Tampa, Florida, which I had occasion to visit as one of the first delegations from India. There's a pit. It's just to describe how this works. It's called, I think they call it a bullpit. And all around are sensors, monitors, and available technology, the press of a button. Every possible facet of intelligence related to right from narcotics to cross-border smuggling to weaponry, issues of nuclear missiles, terrorism, gambling, if you may, from the Ministry, from something called the Department of Homeland Security, and from the military domain flows in. I purposely mentioned only the civilian departments. So I think the order of the day today, this is a major component to derive our eventual strategy in the military domain as well. Now, if that be the kind of information communication technology requirements, that it therefore emerges, it requires underlying computation capability, connectivity, networking, interaction, and decision support systems already spoken about. So really, I'm just repeating what has just been spoken about. While he spoke about the platforms, he also touched upon the connectivity to these platforms, which indeed is what info and communication is all about. And this digitization, therefore, will enable transmission of enormous amounts of data amongst a large group of sensors and shooters. I'm not saying it's not happening. To a very large extent, between the DGIT and the DGIS, there's been a huge amount of movement upwards or forward in this direction. But is it sufficient? We as field commanders felt the shortfall in the sphere. I won't mention computers here, but however, what emerges is that new technologies offer great promise, wireless, power, and energy-aware computing devices, as also embedded computers. Now, the artificial intelligence and robotics, this is a sphere in which we are relatively, should I say, if not clueless, but definitely far behind the West. And I came across some data generation by the essay to the Prime Minister and the essay to the Chief Army Staff, essay to the RM and the essay to the Chief Army Staff, which we analyze. It's indeed interesting. We are still working on a concept paper in this regard, an emerging field in artificial intelligence, robotics, which we definitely need to take to its natural conclusion. I think the biggest challenge is interfacing this technology, core technologies, with the applications. How do we apply it on the ground? I spoke about just one element or two facets of HR, namely the civil and military interface, or training a young soldier to work on these high-tech pieces of equipment. Here, we have a major problem. Interface these technologies with operational application in the field. As already mentioned by General Sundernath, in high altitude terrain, will they survive the vagaries of sub-zero temperatures? Let's talk about the deserts, the high temperatures, and so on and so forth. So while technology will not totally eliminate the fog and friction of war, it will significantly reduce it and change the nature of uncertainties. I come to surveillance. We've already spoken about surveillance both in the sensor sphere. We have satellites with improved sensors, resolution, and revisit schedules, critical. Aerostats, the Air Force already had one or two of them up and running. I think they're both down now. I'm not too sure, and what I heard of lately. Why? When these were evolved a couple of years, I was directly associated with them when the trials were going on all along the coastal regions as also inland. And as far as the Air Force is concerned, they proved an asset, though of course there were two schools of thought when they came in. But looking at it 7 years down the line, definitely, this is emerging core technology which is harnessed very meaningfully by the Air Force. Radars, the air defense is in the process of doing it, a large amount of impetus given in this sphere by the erstwhile Deputy Chief of Army Staff. He's here today, General JP. I'm sure we'll have the benefit of his wisdom on this count. The BFSRs and the weapon locating capabilities as well. Unattended ground sensors, a criticality in CI operations on the LC, and we've just recently had this spate of incidents on the LC, which could directly, if not avoided, definitely benefited us had ground sensors been available, unattended. Night vision devices and third generation thermal imaging technology. I come to the command and control system. I do not intend repeating what has been spoken about, the OODA loop and the architecture, But exploiting the battlefield recce, surveillance and precision strike capabilities require advanced C4I2 systems, and these in turn will meet the demand for real-time, robust, reliable and effective systems. Non-contact battle. We spoke about missiles over the horizon. This non-contact battle has been, it's been in the public domain pretty often and been studied in deliberate detail. So smart weapons like PGMs, technical guided munition and stand-off weapons like sensor-fused weapons are a reality. We are aware where we stand, those of you who are in the know of it, without meaning to divulge anything. We are all aware where we stand on this. A whole lot of work done on this, both in terms of integration into the command and control systems, as also precision guidance and the like, and different platforms too. Long-range rockets, missiles with GPSs and trajectory correction system also are part of the same family of weapon systems. Now the BMD, ballistic missile defense, which has been tested successfully recently, and talking about BMD, the Cyber Command, stroke the Aerospace Command, which there's plenty of talk in the media, and which all the three services and the military are really working on, is definitely, if not a reality, tomorrow in years to come. And this definitely is a manifestation of all the core technologies being harnessed together to be able to conjointly operate better. GPSs have been spoken about, anti-mine detection systems and the future combat vehicles are well known. I won't touch upon these. I mean, an integrated combat system. As he mentioned that a 30-year-old, being a tankman myself, a 30-year-old technology which we worked on as young captains, we continue to work on today as well. There's a crying need, definitely, for whether it's through PPP or R&D or COTS, to upgrade these systems to the obtaining battlefield milieu. An aspect I'd like to touch upon is issues of CBRN. Very little work is moving in this direction. Apart from the personal clothing and such like, I'm privy to because the policy makers for anti-CBRN is my directorate directly. And we've done a lot of work in this direction, both in the conceptual sphere and the organizational sphere, wherein we are putting in place organizations at various levels to be able to effectively combat this forthcoming reality in ops. But however, in terms of connectivity in a CBRN environment is a critical core technology not yet been touched upon. Cyber warfare, electronic warfare has been touched upon. I'll leave it at that. Let's see what is the impact of these core technologies on doctrine. I think a critical issue is the impact these core technologies will have on doctrine. When military technology undergoes significant change, as has happened over the last decade, a little more over a decade, the very nature of warfare must follow suit. However, in reality, technology is just but one constraint in the calculus of military strategy. I gave you my personal example. It took me a long time to absorb a computer. I mean, I'm candid enough to confess that. Till it became an absolute mandated requirement I couldn't do without. Rather, nations base policy formulations on perceptions of current capabilities, signifying a lag between advances in technology and adjustments in strategy. Well, I dare say some of you in the audience will ask me, then what are you doing? That's your job. So I purposely mentioned this. This is a direction which we're working on, and definitely we're trying to bridge this gap. And it's for this reason we have an erstwhile TNWS section, DDG, sitting here, Chakravarti. We have my directors here. We have a DDG of strategy who combined strategy and the technology in General Sabharwal here. And we have the deputy chief who did the complete acquisition, gave it an impetus, which is definitely, if not more, last for 10 years. So what is the technology development strategy? I think I thought I'd close with this. In our quest for modernization and seeking new technologies, an indigenous and strong science and tech base is a must. Apart from that, it will lead us to realize a strong defense industrial base as well. Those are spin-offs. There's a need to map our technological status and identify the gaps. Having done the same, prioritize technologies to be developed. And finally, the methodology of development through transfer of technology, PPP, which I mentioned earlier, or a collaborative approach needs to be ascertained. What we are going to face at the cost of repetition is absorption of this technology. To shorten the technology development cycle and technology denial regimes. There's one lot who doesn't want to absorb it, and there's another lot we're developing it. So we've got to shorten this cycle. With that, I close. Thank you very much, sir, for allowing me this time. I hope I've stuck to my time schedule.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Thank you, General Vala. It comes to me, then I'll be talking on anti-technology, and I certainly am not going to tear away any of what you said. The fact is the technology is there, and I have taken the view on anti-technology from the theory of duality. Inherent in the existence and functioning of this universe is duality in all aspects. Whether moral, you have benevolent, you have malignant. Ontological, Chinese yin and yang. Religious, Christ, Antichrist, God, devil. Philosophy of mind, mind and matter. Philosophy of science, the subject and the object. Popperian philosophy, hypothesis and refutation. Physics, wave and particle, magnetic poles, electronics and holes. Light and darkness. Indian mythology, Swarg, Narak, Prithvi, Patal, and so on. In fact, many of physical and mathematical problems can only be solved through the principle of duality. The theory of duality states, given any linear program, there is another related linear program, or which means really is that if I exist, then my image exists somewhere else. This being a seminar on digitization, I would like to mention that there is a duality in Boolean algebra also. In fact, you can't prove digitization beyond a point unless you apply the principle of duality. So that's just for the digital seminar. Now I'm going to talk about the duality in technology, and that is anti-technology. But before I do that, I also want to introduce the concept of continuum, which is part of duality, which would describe darkness as not opposite to light, but diminishing of light. Means when there is no light, is darkness. So that's called the continuum of duality, and it's also like noise and silence. Absence of noise is silence. That's a continuum duality. So let's just try and define what do we understand by anti-technology. These are not formal definitions, it's something like I have worked on. And one of the possible definitions could be, I've got two to present, asymmetric capabilities intended to defeat an overwhelming technological advantage possessed by an opponent. Could be one of the definitions of anti-technology. As this definition suggests, generally, it is cheaper to harness and employ anti-technology. I'll give you a few examples later. Another possible definition could be technology used to interfere, diminish, or negate the intended function of another technology. For better appreciation of the concept of definition of anti-technology, let us look at the 5 Ds, what the defense forces of warfare is all about. Deterrence, dissuasion, denial, disruption, and destruction. Now, in the achievement of these 5 Ds, let us see where the anti-technology really works. And that's how I'm going to start. In the simplest and earliest form, if the sword, lance, or bow and arrows could be termed as creation of technology of agrarian era, then the shield and the body armor could be considered as anti-technology. In the industrial age, development of anti-tank technologies and weapons would be an appropriate example to explain the concept of anti-technology. It may be correct to assume that anti-tank weapons and technologies have not only kept pace with the development of tank technologies, but at times had a distinct advantage over them. I'm actually got both sides of the tank men, so I'll give the comments with a little caution. In fact, due to the rapid development of anti-tank technologies, anti-tank warfare forms part of the doctrines of nearly every combat force. The three traditional factors determining the tank's capability and effectiveness are firepower, protection, mobility. So let us see how the anti-technology works in these three particular characteristics of a tank. Now, in all these three areas, there has been evolution both in technology and anti-technology. Today, a tank is a very complex and expensive system, and there is a constant endeavor to augment its capabilities and survivability in the battlefield of today and tomorrow. At the same time, there is also a school of thought, which I'm saying tongue-in-cheek with the armor on both sides of me, that the utility of tank as we know of today is perhaps diminishing in the warfare of tomorrow. Now, coming to mobility, this is a very important facet of the tank and the basis of maneuver, warfare. Initially, to counter mobility, I'm talking about the First World War, people used logs to block the possible tank runs. Then came trenches, then came anti-tank grenades, something that you tie up the gelatin and put it on the tank mines, launched from a variety of platforms, including artillery guns and helicopters and aircrafts today. So that is just to counter the mobility of the tank. In Indo-Pakistan context, canal system and the tree lines were developed to restrict mobility and maneuver. Assault bridges were used to cross the canals. Explosives, tank trolls, and mine plows were used to negate the minefields. Now, these could be part of the anti-technology. Why? Because they are beating a technology of mines. Coming to protection. Major consideration of tank designers always has been to ensure protection of the crew and the tank itself, both against existing and anticipated threats. The incorporation of turret, outer shape of the tank, where you went for low silhouette, sloped armor, incorporation of machine guns, fire suppression systems, anti-magnetic paint, camouflage concealment, deception, and most of all, the armor thickness and types are all technologies working towards protection. NBC protection, night vision devices, communications, and so on. All part of the evolution of tanks' protective measures. Concurrently, the anti-technology was at play to defeat each of these. With the current capability of the battlefield transparency, which as far as the United States is concerned, about 90%, detection and location of tanks has become increasingly possible. So therefore, there's related to protection of the tank. Negation of camouflage and concealment technology, you have technology which exists to beat this. We have radars, the infrared sensors, satellite imagery, UAVs, etc., which when coupled with the GPS systems can almost pinpoint their location, which is the first step towards destruction. Electronic warfare measures to locate the tanks as also to draw an electronic order of battle, jamming, and effective interference of optics. You can blind the night vision, smoke screens, and hide the tank from thermal viewers, automated fire control systems, and so on are all anti-technology developments. The Shatora, the soft kill countermeasure system, provides additional protection by interfering with enemy targeting and fire control systems and jamming of the semi-automatic command to line of sight guided ATGMs. T-90s, BMP-3M apparently have this. Now let us consider the progress of the armor protection technology vis-a-vis the development of anti-tank munitions and anti-tank technology. Initially, we started with the normal steel. 37mm guns could then penetrate. You had only the HE ammunition. Then came the increased thickness of the armor plating, using special steels. And then came the anti-technology by way of bazookas, rocket-propelled grenades, high-caliber guns, armor-piercing kinetic energy shells, recoilless guns, heat ammunition, and what have you. These are all technologies which went into munitions and guns to beat the tank's protection. Then came the shaped armor or the Shovam armor to counter shaped charges, defeated by HESH, depleted uranium ammunition, anti-tank missiles, shoulder-launched and man-portable anti-tank weapons, and of course the ammunition, the ATF SDS. Then came the reactive armor, anti-tank missiles with tandem warhead, including the top attack heat submunitions to defeat the reactive armor, rockets launched from a variety of platforms, man-portable, cannon-launched attack helicopters, aircrafts, etc. The rocket-propelled grenades of the type of the RPG-29 or the FGM-148 and the IEDs, which actually is like the crude mines, emerged as the classical products of anti-technology, eminently suited and widely employed today in the asymmetric warfare, the warfare of 21st century. We also have active protection system for the tanks that draws the arena of the Russians, which is a hardcore protection system with multi-munition Doppler radar, 26 quick reaction projectiles and a ballistic computer. I mean, this is technology which is right at the front edge, just the microseconds to calculate the various parameters and then launch a projectile to destroy. And they've been found very effective against the anti-tank, against the RPGs and long-range anti-tank missiles. You have the protection system like the Iron Fist, which is the Israeli system. You have Trophy, again Israeli, but had been the only system which has claimed 100% success and is perhaps the most advanced protection system, automatic protection system of the tank. Now it is this, the active protection system, which is encouraging the comeback of tanks as a competitive weapon system in the modern battlefield. Amazing it may seem that we have 8 countries, including South Korea, which have an automatic protection system. As known to me from the industrial side, from the corporate side, I was negotiating a deal with Israelis on these. I'm not sure where the status is. Anyway, coming to the R&D that's taking place and how the anti-technology is progressing, the focus on current R&D is increased detection capability, such as thermal imagers, automated fire control systems, increased muzzle velocity of the gun to improve range accuracy and armor protection. One of the mature guns, which is a mature technology which is going to gun, the electrothermal chemical guns, like the XM291. And you are also thinking of putting the stealth technology into tanks to be able to protect them from radar detection. And the active camouflage to have the tanks become invisible like the James Bond's car. You also have electromagnetic armor systems which are being developed to disperse or deflect incoming shaped charges, jets, as well as active protection systems. Now, as far as the firepower is concerned, you all are aware the caliber of the gun has been increasing, the missiles are coming, the range of the missile had to be matched by tanks, so you have now missiles being launched by the cannons of the tank gun. Now, these are the few developments that are taking place to augment the firepower to protect the tank. But coming away from the anti-tank, the most potent anti-technology today, in today's warfare, is the electronic countermeasures. All the speakers that refer to this particular field, information warfare, electronic warfare. Now, ECM can be taken as a clear example of anti-technology. It started in 1904. I was surprised also when I was reading this, the ECM. But radar is one of the most versatile and prominent sensors deployed on land, sea, air, and space. It operates on different frequency bands and also is the main contributor to the battlefield transparency, target acquisition, missile guidance, navigation. Now, basic radar ECM strategies are that you radar interference to include jamming, deception. These are all anti-technology. Target modification. You can today present to a radar a different target that you don't want to be seen as. You can shape the target effect, stealth, high-value target. You can hide high-value targets. Changing the electrical properties by electronic shaft. Now even the nylon has come into this particular technology. Now this ECM is practiced by every army in the world, which could be deployed in land, sea, or air. And today, the importance of this is so much that many countries have exclusive aircrafts only meant for ECM. I have a list of about 8 aircraft that fly in the United States on this. The ECM can keep aircraft from being tracked by search radars and targeted by surface to air, air to missile. That means you are protecting your own aircrafts from anti-technology. ECM is of such great value for operation, mission effectiveness, and survival of airborne assets that we have ECM planes, aeroplanes specially designed to carry out ECM. You also ship board ECM packages coming in 3 versions, providing warning, identification, and bearing information about radar-guided cruise missiles. For cruisers and large amphibious ships, there are quick reaction electronic countermeasures. You also have submarine acoustic warfare system, the SAWS, which provides an integrated receiver, processor, display, and countermeasures launch system for submarines. You have counter-electro-optic system being developed to beat your night vision devices, both by dazzling and by damaging. You have the infrared countermeasures being provided by way of flares, and today Israelis and the United States have developed flares which do not cause fire, so they can be deployed in a different way. Another example of anti-technology, as I told you, radar is the most important sensor today available in different form, is the anti-radiation missile, which is only meant to destroy radars. It's a missile which is designed to detect and home onto an enemy radar emission system. It can also be used against communication systems, jammers, because it basically is following the EM energy. They are available in all versions, air to ground, surface to surface, surface to air, air to air. China has developed FT2000 system to counter the AEW and AVAX. Look at the level of technology they're developing based on the HQ9 system of theirs. The anti-radiation missile systems have been marketed to Pakistan by China and various countries. We started work on the anti-radiation missile a few years back. I'm not certain where we are today in this thing. Next, most important technology, and I think we should be scared of this kind of a technology coming in, is the electromagnetic pulse, the EMP. EMP is similar to high-density electric field. It acts like a stroke of lightning, but is stronger, faster, and briefer. EMP can be generated by, of course, the high-altitude nuclear weapon. The first was done over the Johnson Island by exploding a 1.2 megaton bomb at 250 kilometers above. Now, what really is of scare is the non-nuclear EMP. EMP that can be generated without nuclear devices. And these are being referred to as E-bombs. These are specialized weapons designed to destroy information systems. All the speakers, the panelists have referred to information warfare. This is something which really knocks up everything which has a little wire hanging somewhere. It's a non-lethal system. It doesn't destroy buildings or doesn't kill humans or animals, so therefore it's an attractive technology to use in the battlefield. It damages circuitry of any kind. The ICs and the semiconductor devices are more prone. So what the Russians have done is that they have gone back to valve technology to protect their equipment again from the EMP. Now this is a statement I'm making. Anybody can make an E-bomb. You go to the net, there's a gentleman called Abhay Gupta, Indian, who says how to make this bomb for less than $1,000. So an E-bomb can be made by less than $1,000 and exploded. That is the carriage and explosion is something that we need to be done. Non-nuclear EMP weapons can be carried as payloads in bombs, cruise missiles, and drones. So imagine you launch 3 cruise missiles, and the first one is electronic, which got an E-bomb into it. That means everything that light will go off, anything which is electronic will stop working, and then you launch your strike after that, immediately after that. That can also be done by cyber. which is something that I just mentioned. E-bombs give decisive capability in strategic warfare and electronic combat. E-bomb could neutralize vehicle control systems, targeting systems, communication systems, navigation systems, long and short range sensor system, which all the panelists have talked about. And hence the power of anti-technology that I'm alluding to. Next, which was mentioned in passing by General Sundarnath, and also to my mind is a very strong anti-technology weapon, is the anti-satellite weapons. Anti-satellite weapons are designed to incapacitate or destroy satellites for strategic military purposes. Currently, United States, Soviet Union, and China are said to have developed these weapons. India has all the parts and capabilities, but has not translated that to a demonstrated capability from the public knowledge. Incidentally, all the noise started in 2007 when the Chinese destroyed one of their own satellites, and the garbage, the debris they created, and those of you who've seen Gravity picture would know what this debris, space debris can do. Before you launch a satellite, tremendous amount of calculation goes to see that the debris are not on the way, and there's an international cooperation which people tell each other if the debris are sighted, etc. Now, the Americans and the Russians had this technology matured in 1980. It started in 1968, anti-satellite technologies. So they've done their work, they got their weapons, and then they say, okay, now space for peace. That notwithstanding, there have been tests carried out by America as late as last year. People have forgotten the tests carried out by China in 2008, 2010, 2012, April 2013. So this is something which is proceeding, and I have a strong view on this, that if India needs to, then this is the time to develop it and use it. Because otherwise, just like the nuclear things are banned, you have the 5 nuclear powers and the others not doing anything. You have 3 chaps who can do ASAT and rest can back off. So anyway, that is something we'll talk about then. So Chinese are investing a lot in this anti-satellite technology. Now, what are the kind of weapons which are available? You have the kinetic energy weapons, which just goes, hits a satellite, kills it. That is where the debris come in. Now, anyway, I'll not talk about. The next is the direct energy weapons, which General Bala mentioned. We have lasers, which can go and blind the satellite. We have microwaves, which can bombard. Space, ladies and gentlemen, is a very cruel environment. Nothing works there, in fact. So therefore, the satellite which is there, the life of satellite or the survivability of satellite is really contingent on things like heat balance. You know, one side of the satellite, which faces the sun, goes up to 1000 centigrade, let's say. What doesn't face the sun goes to minus something. So there's a tremendous amount of thermal gradient. And there is no radiation in space. Therefore, heat exchange methods have to be followed in the satellite design, etc. So if you work with any of these, you have an anti-satellite weapon. Now, a satellite, for instance, has 3 motions at the same time. It rotates around its axis, it moves in an orbit, and it mutates. The mutation can be 30 to 60 kilometers. So if you have something which just knocks off, tuck, like that, you can kill the satellite. And that's what the microwave, high energy microwave beam can do. Lift the satellite up to a particular point where the correction cannot be done by the person controlling satellite, and the satellite goes free in space, lost. Okay. Of course, then there's the capturing of satellite. There's a movie, James Bond movie, where you saw the chap goes and picks up satellite. That technology exists. The Americans did that in 1987. And this docking technology that you see, that the satellite goes and docks with the space station, that's exactly this, capturing the satellite. You can just hijack a RAM satellite and take it away. So the capturing of satellite is another thing. One can talk about a lot, but ASAT weapons, therefore, or ASAT technology is anti-technology. Last that I'm talking about, which I'm not going to talk in detail, though it's my favorite, because there's going to be a whole session devoted to this, is the cyber warfare. Cyber warfare, ladies and gentlemen, is nothing but anti-technology. 125-digit code. To beat it, you need 2 million codes. anybody can strike, and therefore, at the heart of asymmetric warfare is the cyber warfare, and cyber weapons is nothing but anti-technology. I've written about it, and today, cyber weapons are being described as the weapons of mass disruption, as powerful as the weapons of mass destruction. So I'm very happy, and I compliment General Katoj and Jan Banwal for including cyber as one of the sessions which Gulshan Rai is going to chair. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the aim of anti-technology is to exploit asymmetry in the development and operationalization of technology. Nations which have technical asymmetry against their adversaries are left with no option but to focus on development of anti-technology, while concurrently developing the requisite technology. Pakistan concentrated on the development of its air defense and anti-tank capabilities to counter India's superiority in aircraft and armor. Pakistan development and threat to use tactical nuclear weapons, the book has been released just now, against our armor concentration indicates the strategic importance of anti-technology. In that case, the TNW actually is a part of anti-technology taking on the tank, and add to that an E-bomb. You got your day made. China has harnessed anti-technology to offset the technological superiority of the United States in the domains of maritime security, electronic warfare, cyber warfare, and space. Ladies and gentlemen, the warfare of 21st century is asymmetric warfare, right? And the technologies which are required are 4: nuclear, space, cyberspace, special operations, period. That's what the complete, look at the power of the asymmetric warfare. You know, 3 guys knock off the parliament, force it deployed for 2 years. 18 guys knock off the 2 towers, and you have the whole gambit of anti-terrorism, homeland security coming into play. 5 guys take on Bombay, and you have a whole lot of these problems. That is the warfare that we got to be preparing for. Vulnerability of existing technology, survivability against next generation technologies, and the study of cost-benefit analysis with regard to investment in technologies and anti-technology would remain an area of focus amongst the techno-strategists. While both would be required in a typical operational scenario, their proportion would be determined by mathematical modeling, simulation, field exercises, whatever. Anti-technology to include hardware, software, firmware, skinware, however, give considerable operational advantage. Just think how the rocket-propelled grenade, the RPGs, the IEDs, shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles, cyber attacks have become mainstay of asymmetric warfare. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.